Welcome to The Christian Atheist, where faith and reason fuse in the incarnation. Episode number 126, Chatterview with Jennifer Galardi.
Part 2.
Before you turned to God, what did he look like to you?
I had no relationship with Jesus. The difference I would say is it is more personal. The things I was trying to feel so deeply in meditations, I was trying to get there by meditating 2 hours a day and praying to gods and goddesses and of like the Hindu faith, which clearly I'm not, not Indian. I'm Greek and I'm Italian. So I was trying so hard to have this, to feel this love, just experience it. And it never really came. And now I don't even have to do much. I mean, I have daily practices of prayer and meditation still, which is, again, that was a great thing from my discipline of 10 years in yoga and tantra and meditation. I have a daily practice. I don't have to convince myself, but I also don't have to sit there for 3 hours anymore and try to like work up into this feeling of God. It's like everywhere present now. And it keeps growing. The more I read about my faith, the more I practice my faith, the more I'm challenged. Deeply, deeply challenged. Like I've not been challenged like I have in the past year. I definitely had low points in my life, but have not been challenged like I have personally as I have with my walk with Christ.
Much different. Right.
Yeah.
And there's meaning to it. So you're a driven person. So what did you think when you came to the realization of what the progressive movement has done, to you went to the other side? And then you look back and you're like, oh my word. Did you see the damage before you turned, or was it like eye-opening?
It was eye-opening. I keep telling people and I'm working on a piece right now. I hope to have it done soon, but kind of it's called The Long, Slow March to the Left, because it tends to be very insidious, because it shrouds itself in very nice language, compassion, lives matter, right? Black lives matter. Like, it's all very much shrouded in nice language, to be honest. I mean, you think you're a good person because you're standing up for something. And then you realize that these people are the most vitriolic, hateful,
Exactly.
like intolerant, quite frankly.
And were you shocked at that point when it dawned on you, or did you secretly kind of know all of that all along?
No, I had a moment. I always speak about this incident, and I'll tell you here. I don't know how many times I've told it. I've told it to people before. I don't know if I've said it to the public. So I was in an acting class before COVID hit, and we started to do classes online once COVID hit. We would get on Zoom like everybody did, which inherently felt awful to me. I don't know how people tolerated this BS. I mean, it is great for this kind of interaction, right? Where we can talk because we're not close by. We can have an interview, right? But like to have an acting class over Zoom, I don't know. To be honest, it became like a therapy session.
Right. Right.
And one of the things that Christ did, to be honest, is rebuild my self-confidence. And so I didn't constantly need these therapy sessions all the time, right? Like I didn't need to be around people wallowing in self-pity all the time.
Right.
And doing all this self-help stuff. But anyway, that's a side note. So we were in this acting class online, and this was the day after the George Floyd incident had happened. And so we're all emotionally gyrating about how terrible, and granted, I felt this was awful. This was, I also thought like, well, maybe we should wait until the facts come out, see what happened. But no, everybody's whipped into an emotional frenzy. Okay. Fine. I participated. I was on board at this point. I had just read, I think my friend gave me the book White Fragility. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm a terrible person. I'm sure I had something to do with this. We're in this acting class and
an acting class,
right? But we're all, listen, what people don't understand, there are some good things about acting classes is it really does get you to like the core of your emotions, but it's all about the core of your emotions. You're not supposed to think too much about your reaction to things. That's what makes acting, right? You're not supposed to filter yourself, or you're supposed to really just react to your emotions. Well, that doesn't work so great in the real world. It's great and for a movie, because who wants to watch somebody going through their day, making breakfast, washing their hair? Like that's not an interesting movie. Movies are all about the emotional highs, right? The things that pull us at our heartstrings. So anyway, so there are some good things about that. It really gets you in touch with your feelings, which, to be honest, a lot of people have a hard time doing. I did not. I was overly emotional, overly sensitive. So I didn't have a hard time with that. Anyway, we're sitting there, we're all like kind of saying, oh, I really need to look at my participation, how I played a role in this, in the society that allowed this to happen. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, we're all doing that. And it did feel a little odd to me how I was supposed to feel like this tremendous sense of loss for somebody I didn't know, or that I was really supposed to put my life on hold for one person's death, when a lot of people die every day in terrible ways, in horrific ways, and people, that do a lot less worse than this guy, right? A lot more innocent lives.
Right.
So all of that to say, like, I get through the acting class, blah, blah, blah. That evening, I'm going down the rabbit hole of YouTube, and somehow I land on a Facebook page by Candace Owens.
Oh, yeah.
No clue who this girl is. No. Never saw her before. I am as apolitical as it gets at this point. Although I didn't know, I was political, but I didn't know it. I was putting, I was saying all the right terms of the left, but I didn't think I was political. You know what I mean? Because it was all social. It was all for the good of the world. This isn't political at all. I'm just a good person. I'm a good person. So as far as like knowing who's on what news station, what liberal media even is, like, I have no clue.
Okay. So real quick, you didn't see there was a distinguishment between liberal and conservative media at that time?
Mm-mm. I mean, I knew my mom watched Fox News a lot, but I was like, I can't stand the noise on either side, to be honest. I never had a television, so I don't watch the news. I don't turn it on to explicitly go there. I had no idea what was going on in the world. Yeah. So this was 2020. No clue.
I think you said Jonathan Haidt's research showed that when you're on the left, you don't have any idea, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you don't understand the other side.
He explicitly has done research on this. Jonathan Haidt, the psychologist.
Oh, I love him. I love his work.
Yeah, me too. He's done research on it, and the research proves that the right does understand the left. The left has no clue about the right.
Yeah. Interesting. I'll have to look that up, because his book was also, we had to read that for one of my courses in my first year. The Coddling of the American Mind. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is another great tangent, but I had a class called Manliness, and we had to read Coddling of the American Mind. Anyway, I'm a big fan of his work, and Greg Lukianoff. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I come across Candace Owens on Facebook, and she's making the argument about, like, okay, what happened is terrible. Yes, we can all agree upon that. But why are we making this man a martyr? This was not an upstanding citizen. He had multiple arrests. He had held a pregnant woman up to gunpoint. He had robbed people. He was a drug addict. Like, this isn't Thomas Aquinas we're talking about here, So what are we doing? And I was like, girl's got a point. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I sent that video to my acting class. Clearly, I had no idea. Like you said, the left doesn't know. Like, I had no clue. I'm like, this is just a good point. She's making a good, solid. I think somehow my logical brain, my education kicked in. My brain that I had shut off for maybe 10 years kicked in, and I was like, sister's got a point. So I sent this to my class. Crickets.
How did you send it? Just on social media?
Email. Just an email. Okay, like, hey, this is, since we're talking about this tonight or last night, I just thought this was like an interesting point. Food for thought. Well, no one responded except for one woman. And her first response, I still have these emails. I won't search them to get, word for word.
No, I know what you're saying.
But she responded and said, Jennifer, thank you for sending this. This is an interesting perspective, or opposite perspective, from clearly an articulate young Black woman. intelligent. I believe she used the word intelligent, maybe. I'm like, oh, okay. I thought so too. That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
Interesting. Half an hour later, I get another email from her. Jennifer, this is Candace Owens from Fox News. How dare you send this?
Don't you
blah, 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 blah. And just like ripping me a new one. I was like, that's interesting because a half an hour ago, she was an intelligent young Black woman. And now she's the devil.
Right.
I was like, something's not right. And that really was, that was it.
Yeah.
And so I started, people laugh. I'm like, I started listening to Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson. And, you know, Joe Rogan is by no means a conservative.
Not a conservative.
No.
At all.
But he's open-minded.
He's open-minded and he questions and he has people on his show that I found. I think that's how I found Jordan Peterson and started listening to Reason again. And he's a big, you know, talks a lot about the logos and how God is logos. And it was all of this confluence of events. And I was kind of going through this self-guided coaching program. So maybe the self-help did help a little bit. That really made you kind of own your own shit, look at your life and say, where am I responsible? And I'd always said, I don't want to be a victim. And yet my whole life I had been playing, well, not my whole life, but for the past 10 years, I'd been playing one, to be sure.
Right.
Anytime you buy into that ideology, you're going to buy into that mentality of victimhood. Someone's always got to be the victim. That is the game.
Right.
It's a power struggle, always. It's Marxism. So,
and that's what underlies everything pretty much.
It's power. It's power.
Yeah. Right.
And if you, that's why, you know, a lot of them don't like God because you're saying, oh, I'm submitting my will
I have to submit
to greater authority.
Right. And John's real big on Hegel. Are you familiar with
Hegel? Yeah. I don't know much about his
that's
work,
what,
but basically
enough. You kind of did your dissertation on him, right?
On Jean-Paul Sartre and the connection to German idealist philosophy. You probably would enjoy The Christian Atheist. If you listen, start at the beginning and work your way forward until you can't take it anymore.
Okay, I will.
Because it gets really deep and
maybe I might have to interview after just to get some insight into this piece I'm writing, because I know about kind of politically how the progressive left happened. You know, I know a lot about like kind of Margaret Sanger and the German influence, but what I'm fascinated by and what I've wanted to dig into is how they've infiltrated the education system and how they kind of came over. Isn't all that's from, they said, you know, go and infiltrate the education that we see the fruits of that labor right now.
That's Antonio Gramsci and
march through the
the long march through the institutions.
Right.
So
and I trace it even farther back.
Yeah, he traces it back to Hegel.
I go back philosophically, and it gets deep, and I probably shouldn't have done it as a podcast, but it was like Jeremiah, the word was burning in my belly, and I had to let it go forth.
You had to. Yeah, you had to let it burn, like let that fire burn, and that's kind of how I feel. It's like every time I think, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, what am I doing? I'm in the wrong bit. I should just go back to teaching fitness. I get in these conversations with people and I get lit on fire. So I don't know where my place in the world is with this yet.
And how long has it been now? How many years?
I kind of returned to Christ in September of 2021. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I graduated from Pepperdine School of Public Policy this past April, and I'm writing. I actually am just in the process of switching writing jobs from this kind of obscure website that nobody ever read to the New York Sun. I'm writing for the New York Sun now, I think, if it goes well.
Are you saying about, is it 1942?
1945 was the website 45. I was writing for.
Okay. Yeah. And you write a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
2 pieces a day. Just cranking them out.
Yeah.
You know, but I say contributing to the kind of the moral outrage, but which I don't like. I don't like feeling like I'm just contributing to the noise. I really want to make sure my pieces have something to say that I feel passionately about. Beyond just the like Trump trials or, you know.
Or Gavin Newsom.
Well, there's a lot there. A lot of those are, there's a lot of, he offers a lot of fodder because it's so antithetical to the federalist system. He's so antithetical to a democratic republic. You know, I'm not completely closed off to progressive ideas, right? Mm-hmm. I'd love for us to be able to be a sustainable, solar-powered, wind-powered economy. We can't. It's impossible. Mm-hmm. Resources are going to be used. So there's always trade-offs. And it's just, we're just not there. And we never will be completely carbon neutral. You can't be. I mean, it's just a preposterous idea. So, you know, I'm all for renewable energy to an extent. to the extent that people can live free, and not be confined to like, if you can't travel 5 miles outside of a certain radius because of your electric vehicle. And by the way, sorry, you can't charge it today because there's just not enough.
There's not enough electricity. Yeah.
Electricity. Right. And by the way, guess what fuels that electricity? When you don't have enough coal.
Right.
So again, when it goes against common sense and logic, I listen to both sides of the argument.
Well, what do you say about the left? You say about how they're good at seeing the changes that need, they see the problem.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're actually going back to sort of the fundamental idea that the human race has been divided into two distinct ways of looking at the world, the liberal and the conservative way. And both are vital, important for any vibrant society. You can't function as a society without having both. But when one side gets extremely unbalanced, and we are so unbalanced to the left right now that it will destroy us. And the thing about the two, and I'll shut up again here, I'm trying to stay in the background here.
No, jump in.
All the things you're saying are triggering me, and I want to jump in too. The conservatives, when it gets unbalanced towards the conservative position, it takes a long time for the society to die. When the left gets unbalanced, it kills it really, really quickly. Yeah. And we're in the midst of killing ourselves incredibly quickly right now.
Yeah. Well, it's like they want to tear down everything. It's like, it's the idea of like, well, don't tear down the fence before you know why it's there.
Exactly.
The other one I love is like, you can be so open-minded, your brain falls out. It's like, this is ridiculous. You're right. You're absolutely right. You need both. This is, again, I go back to my tantric teachings, and this is the feminine and the masculine, the yin and the yang. Every tradition has some sort of balance around it. It's why I do say, and I have no problem saying that I do believe Christianity is a superior religion. I mean, you had the very conservative rule of law God of Judaism, and then you had the grace and the love and the compassion and forgiveness of Jesus. And Jesus is actually both. He encompassed both. He didn't say get rid of the law. He said, I'm here to fulfill it. Right. And to give a little grace and to give a little of progressive. I mean, and then the progressive tries to like snag Jesus and say, oh, he was the ultimate liberal, the ultimate progressive. He dined with tax collectors and
do that either.
And whores, but he also said, "Go and sin no more. Stop your
exactly."
BS. He wasn't this all accepting person. He didn't
rub out the boundaries.
I was just going to say, he set up the boundaries, and we're inside of the boundaries, being able to explore everything, but within those boundary lines. And the boundaries are humongous. Actually, the boundaries that God
never ending.
Yeah, his boundaries aren't like that restrictive. They're pretty, God's given us a lot of leeway. It's just stay within these traditional boundaries, male, female,
natural order. You can take it out of Christianity and just put natural order there has to be order. And we have, like you said, John, there's no order. All we have is chaos right now. I mean, look at the world. It is complete chaos. And when I look at it from this kind of tantric philosophy perspective, it is the feminine gone wild. There is no masculine. And look what we've done. We've torn down masculinity, and it's just chaos. But you need the creative and the flow of the feminine. But again, you need it's like a river without the banks. He
always says, what do you call it?
I say we have maternalized the culture and infantilized the population.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
But this was, and then you can get into like how feminism played a role in this. And, sometimes I boil this down to like, you've got to stop warring with the opposite sex. You have got again, it's another power dynamic. Instead of women, the feminist movement saying, okay, we accept men's role in the world, and we're not trying to overtake it. We're not trying to dominate it. We're trying to complement it. And then how can we do that within our own legal rights? Now it's just they just want a complete reversal. And it can't work. We have to stop this war of male, female, masculine, feminine. One's better than the other. You need both. You need both to create another human life. You need both to create a society. You need, it's like, you need both.
It's literally an inversion.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I trace it back to Hegel.
Yeah, this is what you talk about with Hegel.
You turn the culture on its head. And when you put a pyramid on its point, it's not going to stand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
no foundation.
It's like right out of Isaiah. You're taking evil for good and good for evil.
Right.
Upside down, the upside down world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what he's been working on, the Christian atheist, for a long time. But when getting back to what we were saying about liberal and conservative, what I meant was that you said about how the liberal, they're able to see the problem and raise awareness.
Right.
And the conservatives are here to, get it taken care of.
To get it done.
But the problem is the liberals, when they're in power, then they turn everything upside down. And then that's where we are now.
Yeah, the liberal, I think, as I've come to understand it, should be.
And you're talking about like capital L liberal, right? Not like just the liberal order of society.
Liberal, not taking it completely out of the party thing, because almost we've changed positions in the modern world.
Right.
Conservatives are now liberals and liberals are now conservatives.
Right.
But
I would say the conservatives still want to try to uphold the little L liberal order, the liberal democracy, where you have the right to choose your religion. I'm not going to persecute you for that.
Right.
I don't agree with it, but we all have to learn how to get along. That's kind of the little liberalism.
Yeah. You're talking about the big.
Yeah. Kind of the way I think of it is really in relation to borders. Conservatives tend to like really strong, powerful borders. And the liberals like to look at those borders and say, no, we've got to break that down or lessen it. And there's a good role for that, because when you look at any society, there's always going to be people on the margins whose lives could be made better by making corrections. Right. And that's the role of the liberal. But the problem is when they get in charge, and I don't think liberals should ever be in charge. Not that they shouldn't have influence, but they shouldn't be running things in the way in which they've been running them in the Western world for the last 120 years or so.
Right.
Because it just constantly, one thing after another, you're pulling out, as you said a little while ago, without knowing why the fence is there, you're ripping the fence out. And that's dangerous, because there might very well be something really bad on the other side of that fence.
Yeah. Well, what I've noticed is that they're all about destruction, a destruction of a life, whether it's abortion, it's all the destruction of the family unit, the destruction of borders, it's all taking down, tearing things down, deconstructing, right? I have to deconstruct even this tendency and now in Christianity to deconstruct the faith. I have to deconstruct everything. Well, you better damn well have another system in place before you take something down. And they don't. Yeah. It's the same thing with green energy. You're going to take down our fossil. You're going to deconstruct the system of energy. You don't have a better system in place yet. Perfect that, and then we'll talk about it. But there's nothing life-giving about it. It's not life-affirming. This is what I find. There's nothing life-affirming about it. And this is where it relates to my faith is like, I mean, abortion is not life-affirming. I don't care what you say. You can argue whether a woman should have a choice to do it, but it's not life-affirming in any way. It's destructive. You are destroying a life.
I am a Christian with the searching and skeptical mind of an atheist. I don't want to believe anything that isn't true. I know both sides of the looking glass, and I know them with open eyes. I choose Christ's side. I invite you to join me from wherever you stand before the looking glass. That's this week's episode. Thanks for listening. And remember, you can have your religious cake and eat it too. You can have reason, respect for science, a 21st century worldview, and be a Christian.